All right. Well, hey guys, here we are. This is our podcast.
Absolutely. So it's our second run. Today our guest is Adam Anderson with a Buyer's Choice Home Inspections, and he's going to kind of take us through his story. So Adam, what I wanted to ask you first was just sort of what got you into being a home inspector?
Yeah, that's the question I always get. So 2015, I was working for a large New Brunswick-based multinational food company. It doesn't leave a lot of mystery as to who it might be, does it?
Especially based in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
I think we can figure that out.
Good company. I wasn't. It wasn't that I was really unhappy with the company, but every now and then I have to change things up a little bit. So I'd been with them for about 20 years, and I was just looking to do something different. And I think I was following in the footsteps of my father a little bit, although it was kind of unknown at the time, where I just wanted to get into business for myself, you know.
What did your father do, if you don't mind me asking?
Everything.
Okay.
Private sector, public sector, entrepreneurship, and that's what I mean. I think I inherited a little bit of his
Get up and go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I started looking into different ideas, you know, opening business, but the things that kept falling into my lap were, you know, kind of, restaurant, bar, retail, that kind of thing. And you know how the algorithms work when you're looking for things on the internet. I remember an ad popped up for this company saying, how was it worded now? Are you a corporate escapee? And the way it was worded, it really talked to me, because it wasn't looking for somebody that really hated their job. I certainly didn't hate my job. I liked it. I liked the people I worked with. I liked the camaraderie, but I was looking for something different. So I started poking around a little bit. I have a technical background, but not necessarily a home building background. And then I realized, well, like any trade, those skills are learned, and the important thing is a lot of the soft skills. So I had a few things on my list. I wanted to work in technical, and I wanted to work with people, and I wanted to work for myself.
That's awesome.
Right? So
Absolutely.
So I started that journey, and from the time that you decide you're going to do it to the time you're actually doing a paid inspection, it takes it takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months, depending on how ambitious you are, just because there's a fair amount of training to go through to get there.
And where is the training offered, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it's changed with my company since I started. I went to Florida.
Okay. Wow.
It was great. It was during spring training. Actually, it was after spring training, and the Blue Jays, my team, were opening up in Tampa, so I got a couple ball games.
Hey, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a win-win.
But now the training is done. It's done virtually, and it's either you can attend, but it's based out of Halifax or Calgary. It's based in Canada now. So, but the company used to have a strong base in the States, particularly in Florida. So that's where we went.
Do you find the training that you have to go through, like, is it becoming more rigorous? Like, is there more coming to light? Like, how would you find it's advanced in your time being a home inspector?
From the time I did it to now, I'd say there's more emphasis on shadowing, mentorship. When I started, it was a lot of book training. So there's 400 hours of book training, and then
400 hours of book training.
That's what the Carson Dunlop training module consists of. So
that is a lot of hours.
Yeah,
that just blows my mind.
Well,
right now.
The more background you have, the less it is. If you don't have any type of trades background,
sure.
It takes a lot longer. So 400 is kind of the average to get through Carson Dunlop.
Now, from a home inspection, is there a standard of home inspections, or this is a buyer's choice company standard?
It's a buyer's choice. I'd like to think that a lot of the franchises would have a similar standard.
Sure.
The only thing I would say that's standard in New Brunswick is the association that you're affiliated with. So there's a few different associations that have their own standards of practice. One is InterNACHI, which I think a lot of the local home inspectors are involved with. There's CAPI, which tends to be more big in Ontario. And there's ASHI, which you could join, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, but that's still an option as well.
Okay.
They're fairly common. I can't get into the details of the differences between them, but it's a standard that you follow. So
do you ever think as a province that we'll see any sort of standardized guideline that we have to follow?
I hope so. Not everybody's a fan of that because it introduces cost and complexity, but it elevates the industry a bit when you have some rigor built into how they're done. So, like with any profession, you have your bad actors, and oftentimes the bad actors are the guys that go in with very little background or very few credentials, and somebody has a bad experience. They tell 10 friends, and next thing you know, the whole it casts a pall over the whole industry. So,
right. You say 2015 is when you started. When did you actually become a home inspector?
So summer 2015 is when I decided to acquire the company or acquire the franchise rights. First inspection was in May of 2016.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, cheapers, that's 8 years now.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Time flies.
So what would a home inspection for you look like, right? So for those who, because we've obviously dealt with you numerous times, but what does that look like for the average person who's booking you to come do a home inspection on their property? What are the things you're looking for?
So it's standards of practice. So basically everything that I look for and a home inspector should be looking for is broken down into sections or systems of a house. So everybody has their own routine. My particular routine starts on the outside of the home, unless it's a rainy day, and then I change it up so I can avoid rain. But so you're looking at the exterior system, so siding, windows, doors, roof, chimneys, decks, patios, grading, retaining walls, those types of things. Then we move into the indoor systems, so your mechanical, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, structural. I look in the attic. And I say that's the middle third of the inspection. The last third is just going around and checking the things that people would utilize every day. You know, your plumbing fixtures, your appliances, ceiling fans, heat pumps, baseboard heaters. So that whole process takes approximately, 2.5 to 3.5 hours, depending on size, age of home, what you're getting into. Typically meet the client afterwards with the realtor to review on site. Nice for them to see. It's not so nice for them to watch us inspect because honestly it's about 45 minutes to an hour of inspecting, and the rest is just logging information and taking pictures for
what you found. Yeah.
That's one thing that I find I end up telling a lot of my clients who want to be there for the entire home inspection. I'm like, I think you're almost a bit more distracting when you're there for the home inspector, because if you're asking questions, watching everything that you do, like I would think that would detract from your focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, speaking from my own experience, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think some home inspectors revel in it. It gives them a chance to show how knowledgeable they are. But I think you can still do that by reviewing afterwards. How I like to put it is, during the inspection, I like to give my focus to the house. But when the inspection's done, then I could give my focus to my client. But as much as we all like to be multitaskers, I don't know that you can do it all at one time.
Right.
Usually, I mean, I've come home from inspections before where I've had a client and his family following me around and realized, I didn't even go in the attic.
Right.
You just get off, or I left a tool behind. So you just get off of your
routine.
Yeah.
Well, a distraction's a distraction, whether it be somebody you wanting them there or not, right? Like that's But I would have to also say that at the end of the home inspections, where you do the review, where you guys end up sending the full binder, here's the photos of everything that we have so they can review it later on. I find that to be a very beneficial thing for clients so that they can take and learn from it.
Absolutely. If a client is local or if they're nearby, it's absolutely it's not critical because we found ways to get around that with the number of virtual buyers, through video calls, video reviews. But if they're nearby, it's very worthwhile coming by and seeing the house, seeing it through my eyes, having a chance to ask me questions.
How do you feel the industry has changed over the last couple of years, from when you first started in 2016 to 2024? We all have the pandemic smack dab in the middle of that question. But what have you seen as far as some key issues that have stopped coming up, or is there new problems that are arising, or how has the industry been changing in your eyes?
Well, it's kind of a short window, but when I started in 2015/16, home inspections were fairly common. You guys probably have the stats on it, but I was kind of told by certain people in the industry that 95% of home purchases purchasers have an inspection done. when COVID hit, it was 2020, and I still remember we didn't know what was going to happen. We all I think we all had a moment where we thought that everything was going to crash.
I remember that moment very well.
Yeah. And
Yep, still fresh in my mind.
I think there was a crash, but it lasted maybe a week or two, and then it came back with a vengeance. And so 2020, 2021 were the busiest, craziest. Would never want to do it again.
Absolutely.
And I think it stayed that way. Real estate is, for the most part, stayed that way. But for home inspectors, it got so busy that we started getting cut out, right? And for those that are listening to this, the reason is there's so many offers, so much interest in a property that there's just no opportunity to. The less conditions you have, the better opportunity you have to get the property. So the shift that happened there is I still was busy, but I was busy doing inspections after the fact. Doing more pre-inspections for the sellers.
Right. Yeah.
Doing other inspections for other reasons. For example, people are thinking of taking legal action and they just want to have a home inspection, so they have a document that says this is what a home inspector would have found if I would have been able to get one. So I was still busy, but there was a shift in the type of inspections I was doing. I mean, in terms of the process, it was very much the same, but in terms of what people were doing with it, that's where the change started happening, probably in late 2021 through 2022. So
two things to what you said. So the pre-inspections, but you guys were also doing sort of mini inspections, which weren't quite to the same standard.
Yeah.
But it was something that it was at least giving somebody an opportunity to get in and have a professional look at it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit controversial at the time because, it's kind of a stodgy industry, right? And in terms of Internachi and CAPI and the associations, that they have their standards, and when you're doing these mini inspections, or we called them advisory services because we didn't even want to attach the word inspection to it, because then
That makes sense.
Then it's kind of assumed that you're following a standard, and you're not. You're going in. It's a very quick, but as Chris said, it's better than nothing, but it's not.
Right,
it's not our standard. So I was saying it probably gives you 80% of the value,
Right.
but there's no report involved. You're not documenting anything. It's more you follow me around, and I'm going to try to get as much stuff for you as we're allowed to be in this house, which is typically 45 minutes to an hour. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, and
Interesting.
one of the other things that sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is radon, right? So radon would have been one of the things pre-COVID that was becoming quite big.
Yeah.
At least in the standpoint of some people truly wanted it, and some people wanted it as a negotiation tool.
Yeah.
But how have you found since COVID that has radon been a thing?
Not really. I mean, that's just another. That was another potential. I'll call it a condition, even though it might not be an official condition of purchase and sale. But that was another thing that could potentially impact somebody's ability to get
Purchase
the
a
home.
home, yeah.
Right. So yeah, it dropped off when I came into the business. I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about radon. I did all my work and studying and training on home inspections, and then of course radon came in, and I used to present to real estate brokerages, and you guys might even remember sitting on one of these. But I'd do my dog and pony show for realtors to introduce myself, and I'd end it with any questions, and every brokerage I was in, there'd be somebody, usually some senior person, realtor, that would stand up and say, "So, what's your take on radon?" And I think the first time I was blindsided by that. I didn't know much about radon, and I think I said that. I said, "Yeah, I don't know. I just do home inspections."
Yeah.
Turned out there was a lot of nods of approval around the room, and I wasn't sure why, and I had to do a little bit of digging and interviewing.
It is
to
a
find
serious issue, and it's one that we don't want to put any light or negative light around, but it's a serious health risk, and you do have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
But it's do a long-term test, minimal 3 months. I think it's recommended 6 to 12. Because that really gives you a full snapshot of what's occurring naturally in the ground.
Yeah, and I, for the record, I believe everybody should have a radon test in their home.
Absolutely.
I think where I was falling down a bit is, it was requiring a lot of extra visits to the house, and again, a short-term test. People would say it's not accurate. Well, it's not about accuracy. It's about it's about radon levels in the home, and they vary seasonally and throughout the year, and you're just not taking a big window of what the average radon would be. So
Absolutely. And our province is a hotbed for radon, unfortunately. So it is one of those things that the awareness goes a long way, right?
And oftentimes the purchase of a home is the catalyst for having a radon test. I would encourage people not to wait until it's time to sell the home. Just get the radon test, and
Yeah, as soon as you move in, put the test down,
Yeah.
see what's happening. It's now part of the building code, so
Yeah.
I think 2015 or 16 is when the Home Builders Association started putting in the radon.
Yeah, they're all
The
roughed in.
pipes.
So yeah,
Yeah, the rough-in. Yeah.
Yeah, the rough-in. Oh, that makes sense.
The white pipe, and it's also code that it has to be marked specifically with a black marker.
yeah.
Radon
Nobody
pipe.
tries to install a bathroom there or something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if I can change gears a little bit, how from a home inspection to a business owner, how do you merge the two? Because you've got a couple of employees now working with you, or a couple of I'm not going to say, maybe they're not employees. Maybe that's the wrong
No,
term.
they're independent contractors working
Okay.
under the franchise. So
similar as in real estate. We
Yeah.
we have a franchise, and then we are each our own business.
yeah,
Okay, interesting.
yeah.
Are you enjoying the entrepreneurship world of business ownership, or
Yeah, well, it's very rewarding, but also can be very unforgiving at times, right? So, but yeah, certainly it's. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change my decision to enter it. You know, and it's still growing, right? So that's the nice thing about entrepreneurship. Oftentimes when you're working for a company, you want to rise faster than through the ranks than the company can
offer?
promote you. I mean,
Yeah.
there's only so many. The hierarchy gets narrower as you go to the top, and a lot of times you think you're ready, and you may be ready, but there's nothing for you. With entrepreneurship, if you're not happy with what's going, find something else, find another vertical, scale your business, expand it. There's lots of things you can do.
Absolutely.
So for yourself, are you able to talk about any of the things that you have coming up?
In terms of scaling,
Sure.
yeah, well, yeah, we've thanks, Chris. It's not like it's a big secret or anything, but yeah, I wanted to scale my business for a while. There's only so many opportunities to grow within New Brunswick. I mean, once you get a certain market share of any locale, you got to be happy with that. You can't grow it anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, the big untapped market for a buyer's choice right now is Ontario.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, so I've acquired a few franchises in the Toronto and the GTA. So again, it's going to take me away from doing home inspections, trying to grow that business, but it's going to be more virtual mentoring more than anything. So
Oh, fantastic.
it's not like flying to Toronto once a month or anything like that, but it is trying to expand or grow the brand in Ontario and grow it my way. So.
All right. Well, look, just jumping back in here with regards to, I'm going to say or ask the question about the history of home inspections. You said you went away to conferences, and I'm just wondering if the conversation around how the industry has changed over the years and how involved home inspections have been in the home buying process. What's the talk on the street in the home inspection world of how the industry has risen and how it's going to continue to hold firm in this buying environment that we're in?
Yeah, a lot of talk about that. I mean, that's kind of the gist of these home inspection conferences is to kind of look down the road and see how needs are, how customer needs are evolving, how we can impact better delivery. Let's face it, we all get into our jobs no matter what they are, and sometimes you just fall back into doing things the same way you always did.
Sure.
And then you get challenged to do things better. So there's a lot of things, anything that changes realtors' worlds changes ours as well, right? So we're not really looking necessarily internally at home inspection industry, but in the real estate industry in general. As demand increases or decreases, so does the demand on our services.
Sure.
So we're very, very tied into what real estate associations are talking about, what CREA is Canadian Real Estate Association is looking at for short-term, long-term real estate trends. So when we get together at these conferences, there's a lot of realtor panels. We had somebody in talking about AI and how
Yeah.
AI can help. I'm not going to get into that, but
Sure.
there are a lot of opportunities for AI. How to connect with our clients, how to connect with our referral partners, realtors, mortgage brokers, lawyers, doing that through better communication, doing things like this, podcast. I mean, everybody's doing TikTok videos and reels. So the idea isn't to tell you exactly what to do, but to give you a toolbox of things and do what fits with you to positively impact the customer experience. So not everybody is a door knocker.
Right.
Not everybody's a TikTok
Artist.
and you have to realize that. I mean, you don't see, usually the average age of a home inspector is 40 plus, right? And it doesn't come easy for guys to go and do videos. So you've got to find other ways to reach out to your.
I find the video to be one of the toughest ways to, like, objectively put yourself out there, right? It's so hard because you feel like you're being judged, you feel like everyone's looking at you, but it's also the best way for everyone to get to know who you are.
Yeah.
So they would have a much deeper understanding of sort of how you are, how you treat things, the way your perspectives are on everything, like not just a pretty face. And
yeah, and we've talked about this, the impact of communication, just when you can see the person you're talking to as opposed to talking to them on the phone.
Absolutely.
Or even worse, just writing an email, and how that can be misconstrued or misinterpreted. So there's we've talked a lot about instead of sending an email, send not a voicemail, but a voice text.
Yeah.
Or even better, use some of the video tools to send a quick video text.
Yeah.
That way people don't have to try and figure out what's the tone. Are they?
Yeah, here's a question: If you're a homeowner and you're selling your house, and the purchase and sale has gone through, and now the home inspection is coming, most homeowners are always fearful of what is the home inspector going to find. Would you offer any advice to a homeowner to get their house ready for an inspection?
Really, just if we're talking, they've got 2 days notice. Really, just allowing us access to things. Like we don't want an inspection report to be filled with unable to inspect, because it just gets pushed back onto the realtors involved and the seller to identify the things that maybe we couldn't get at an access space, couldn't get at a crawl space, and so on. So just things like that. And I'd encourage sellers not to be intimidated by the inspection. I mean, we've seen a lot of sales with no inspection, and we know, if there's no home inspector involved, sometimes the blame can fall back to a vendor, right? So I always encourage people to just let the home inspection happen. It will maybe not completely absolve them, but certainly take a lot of responsibility off their shoulders should something happen down the road. Because right now, if I do a home inspection and people move in and 2 or 3 months later they find a problem, they're calling me. They're not calling the realtor. They're not trying to get through to the vendor and putting the vendor on the defensive. And so it's really to protect everybody involved. It's not just to protect the buyer. It's really to protect everybody. And that's the big thing. That's what we really try to sell with home inspections. Okay.
absolutely. I remember one time I was in Whirl Station and the gentleman bought it from Ontario, drove down. We were recommending he get a home inspector. He came down. He ended up rolling a 40-ouncer of booze along the floor and goes, "Yep, I don't think it's level." I'm like, well, the bottle's half gone. No wonder. But it's so crazy to think that some people who really have no skill set towards doing the home inspections will also go in there and think that they should be doing it too, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's liabilities. That's more your world than mine, but I'm sure there's liabilities to let just anybody go in and start, testing and playing around with things.
Yeah, it makes it really challenging when you've got tradespeople like licensed electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and everybody's throwing their opinions around.
Yeah.
And I understand that a home inspection is a general overlook of the property to help give advice to a potential buyer of what it is that home ownership really is.
Yeah.
And that's, being a first-time home buyer, buying a home is scary,
Well, in where I come in,
It could be exciting too.
Right. And where I come in is it's very neutral, right? I don't have any emotion attached to it. So, for example, I did a home inspection yesterday, and the buyer's mother wanted her to buy it. The buyer's boyfriend's dad was there, and he thought it was a money pit. And I'm really just, and then the realtor's like, I just want you to be happy. So, I just kind of come in and, try to take all that stuff out of it. And here's the condition, because at the end of the day, I don't care. I mean, I do care. I want my client to be happy too, but the best thing to do is just provide them with the information, which they can then work through with the realtor. Is this home worth the price we're paying for it based on the condition given to us by the home inspector?
Yes. Is
it's
it
not
suitable to you?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's when I can drive away from the inspection knowing, I've done my job. I mean, the worst thing in the world is somebody calling you back.
Of course,
something was missed. Yeah.
Is there a checklist? Like, do you have so many things you have to inspect in a home?
Yeah. So most of us work off of a home inspection template that we've built.
Sure.
That covers off all of the things in our standards of practice. So we go through them all. And home inspections used to be in checklist format. Now, not so much, but still, for all intents and purposes, it is a checklist. So we go down through, make sure we check all of these systems. So we're not just kind of flying by the seat of our pants and kicking the tires and knocking on the walls. I mean, it's there's certainly way more to it than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you find as an entrepreneur? Like, what are some of the bigger challenges you've come across?
As an entrepreneur, or as more of a home inspection specific?
Either or, because they go hand in hand, regardless of how you look at it, right?
Well, I'll early days, it's the not knowing if you've made it. So there's always, as an entrepreneur, a lot of peaks and valleys, over the course of a year. And you'll go from can't keep up with the phone calls, can't even return calls of everybody calling you, to all of a sudden the phone doesn't ring in a week. And trying to learn to manage that was a big moment for me. And I still go through those phases sometimes where you kind of wonder, like, what's going on? Is there something else at play here? Why is the phone stop ringing? But sure enough, if I look at things on a month by month basis, it's pretty consistent.
Sure.
You get a lot of swings within a week, where everybody wants you on Monday, Tuesday, and all you've got available is Thursday, Friday.
Right.
And you have to turn down jobs, then you've got nothing to fill the rest of the week. So there's certainly a lot of challenges with scheduling, with meeting people's requests,
Timelines, deadlines.
Timelines, and it's something you have to manage because it's not smoothed over. It's not like a nice thing. It's not like a job where you're an electrician and you have a call center and you just you go into work at 8 a.m., you get your work order, you go and you punch out at 5. It's not like that. You work all day and you try to return calls and book and schedule inspections and manage your schedule in the evenings and get up and do it again the next day. And Sundays are never totally a relaxing day. You're kind of getting ready for the week. You're trying to firm up calls. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest challenge. And I don't think that's home inspection specific. I think that's probably the same with realtors, with any entrepreneur, electricians,
Business
plumbers,
owners, yes.
Anybody, retail. Yeah.
Yep. Trying to keep the lights on and the bills paid and the client's happy.
Yeah.
So two things. So anybody looking to get a home inspection, do you have advice for them? And anybody looking to get into the home inspection industry, any advice for them?
So if you're looking for a home inspector, I guess the biggest thing is take the advice of your realtor. They've worked with them all. There's always a perception of bias if you use the home inspector that your realtor recommends. But honestly, if you're professionals dealing with professionals, you should know who's the most capable out there, right? But I would also take who your realtor is recommending and then do your own research. I say that in air quotes, but just check them out online. I mean, are they a legit business? Has anybody heard of them? Are there any reviews for them?
Yeah.
Certainly to determine that you're actually getting a home inspector, not somebody that's dabbling in it when he's doing 2 or 3 other jobs and doing renos on the side. Certainly the standards of practice indicate that we're not to actually complete any work, so that keeps me from going in and saying, we need to redo the electrical. And if I'm an electrician, here's my business card. Call me when you buy it, and I'll come in and do that for you.
Interesting.
You can't do that. INRNACHI standards of practice, you can't do that for a minimum of 2 years after an inspection. So it's not saying that an electrician or any type of contractor can't be an inspector, but they can't work it both ways. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, in terms of somebody getting into the home inspection industry, I guess my advice would be there's more to it than just the technical side. And a lot of people burn out because they can't keep up with the aforementioned problems. They may not like dealing with people because, let's face it, a lot of technical people by nature, it's a bit of a stereotype, but technical people like to just dig in and solve problems, and they don't want all the people around them all the time. Well, home inspection's it's a very people-oriented industry. You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to communicate findings. You need to be able to deal with people's emotions.
Right.
You know, you guys have seen it too. There's people crying. There's people upset and screaming. And, you know, if you can't take that, or you truly don't like people, the industry's it's a grind.
It is very much a people industry. When I first started selling homes and meeting all the inspectors, trying to figure out the right, I don't know how to put this, the right connection between the buyer, the communication between the seller, being the realtor. Is this house right for the buyer? Did we scare the lights out of the potential buyer? Just that full rounded communication piece was so important.
Yeah.
I found myself softening the message from the inspector, but also encouraging an understanding of what the potential problem was and how do we fix it? How do we deal with it? Is it something that needs to be addressed right now? Or is it making you aware of something that could be a potential problem down the road? So there was so many pieces to the puzzle that I didn't even know existed until I was introduced to it all.
Yeah, and just trying to find that fine line, because everybody has standards of practice. Realtors do, home inspectors do, and there's things you do and there's things you don't do. Well, for example, oftentimes after a home inspection and you find things, people want their realtor or the home inspector to tell them, what do I do about this?
That's right.
And as we all know, you can't really tell them exactly what they're going to do. You've got the information's there. Ultimately, it's their decision. I'd love to tell people that's not a problem, but I can't say you can't. You can't necessarily tell them that this thing that you don't think is a problem is you're highlighting in the report. You're saying it's a potential problem, but people really want to know. Well,
I find it helps crush the anticipation, right? Because people get anxiety over what could be wrong, and that's the biggest thing that I find with the home inspections. So going in, letting people know that there is going to be problems with every house. I've seen brand new constructions that have a ton of problems, but is it something that you're willing to be able to fix? Like, is it something that you can move forward with, that you're comfortable with? You're not going to find a perfect home.
Correct.
So how do you sort of temper that expectation to make sure that going into it, that everything is smooth?
Well, and I think you just said it. I mean, I have a very similar talk track, and oftentimes I found it helps if you tell people, kind of worst case scenario, best case scenario, and then what I really think it is. But again, you're starting to blur the lines of our standards when you start talking about how you feel. You really have to stick to what you see.
Right.
So you can't say, I think there's a crack in that foundation, if there's nothing to see. I mean, you could see a water stain there, but and you say, you can't say, I think there's a crack there. If there's a wall in front of it and there's no crack, you can't really say all the things you think it could be. At least not in the report. I mean, you can go offline verbally, but again, you're blurring the lines of your standards of practice if you get over speculating during an inspection or an inspection review.
That's one of the biggest problems that I find a lot of people have with home inspectors, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, I think everybody has every home inspector would have a bit of a different take on it. I mean, we all know our standards, but some guys will push the standards. Like, the standards are minimum. That's the bare minimum you deliver. Some guys stick to the bare minimum just because it protects them from liability. Other guys realize that if I just follow the bare minimum, I'm not giving my customer what they want from me.
100%. But there's education, and then there's fear mongering.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So letting somebody know that this ledger board attached to the deck on your house isn't flashed properly, so there's potential that something could happen, But if there's no other signs of moisture or anything else wrong with the house, you can drive a lot of fear into a client telling them that they're going to have to replace an entire wall that doesn't need to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so, I'm not saying you. We've had nothing but fantastic experiences, but I'm just saying those things happen, and that's the scary part that you can run into.
And that, I think a lot of that's the part where experience comes into, I think. Like, if you would have asked me some of these questions when I was just getting started, I wouldn't have known. I would have stuck to the script and stuck to the training. But as you get a bit experienced, you know, kind of, you know how to do these things without crossing any lines of any ethical lines, but yet still, you know, providing a service more than the bare minimum.
Of course. Right?
And I find that just comes with experience, knowing how to talk to people, knowing the words that might erroneously trigger them. You know what I mean? Like you talked about, people can get scared, fear mongering.
Right.
Well, be careful of the trigger words. There's sometimes you got to pull out those trigger words because something's staring you right in the face and you know it's a problem. But don't pull them out and there's nothing really wrong with the house. I mean, you can still communicate that there's a potential issue here without it, you know, without it blowing up the deal on their dream home, right?
Right.
So
I'm going to, in wrapping things up, is there anything about home inspectors that you would want the listener to know?
Yeah, I could go on. How much time have we got? Yeah, so home inspectors, yeah, keep in mind that we do follow our standards of practice, and that is the bare minimum. A lot of people have an opinion on what a home inspection is. Contractors have their opinion on what a home inspector should have seen and what he shouldn't have seen. Parents do too. You could go on Reddit and punch in my name and probably find all kinds of good stuff about me. I don't do that, by the way, but there's a lot of people that have opinions. I mean, you don't have to go on too many chat and message boards that everybody has an opinion on everything.
Of course. It's just the day and age that we are.
It is. And so I think what I'd want people to understand is, you know, go through the information I send before an inspection. It shows our standards of practice. I don't expect you to read through our standards of practice, but at least hit the high points. And in our inspection agreement, there's a few high points, you know, that we're looking for. Understand that we can't, you know, if you do a reno and find faulty wiring behind a wall, understand that's something we couldn't have found. You know, if we can't see everything. It's a visual inspection based on the condition of the home at the day of inspection. Things happen. Pipes will leak. You know, those are things that we can't anticipate.
Of course.
You know, I've had people call me 3 months after they moved in and a pipe burst in their basement, and you know they think there's some warranty against that happening. And a home inspection is not a warranty.
Yeah.
It's information to help you decide whether the house is still for you based on its condition and the price you're paying for it.
Excellent. Well, look, where can people find you? What's the best way? Just by the internet? Or?
Yeah, look A Buyer's Choice Fredericton up online,
Sure.
and you'll see myself and my team there.
Reddit apparently.
No, stay away from Reddit. Now I'm gonna have to look to see if my name's on Reddit. Yeah, we do online bookings too, so you can either call, text, email. Some people, again, online bookings are the way to go now. Some people just don't like to talk to people, so you can go right off and book off the website. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the time. Chris, any last questions? Or?
No, it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
I did want to promote Mark and Patrick, two of your guys, but tough. We're out of time.
Well, we'll catch them another time. So. But yeah,
Absolutely.
we do have a big team, so we should be able to accommodate most inspection requests, especially
Excellent.
as we head into the busy
busy
market.
season.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have been fantastic. We've had a great working relationship, and all of our clients and customers have been very satisfied with your home inspection. So thanks again. Thank you for your time, and thank you, the listener and the viewer, for tuning in. Till next time.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.